All right, welcome to the 40 Finance channel, everybody. Today I have a pretty unique basket of stocks in terms of growth metrics. Heading here into 2025, as I've been studying revenue and growth rates in stocks, I've noticed one thing, and that is that there is very, very few stocks that are projected to grow more on both the top and bottom line than they did the year before. And when I'm talking about grow more, I'm talking about on a percentage basis. So if you grew 10% top and bottom lines last year, 2024, I'm looking for stocks that take that growth and, for example, grow 15% on both the top and bottom lines, projection anyway, for 2025. You simply don't find a lot of them. There's no Mag 7 stocks in this particular video, so I thought it would make an interesting thing to go through. As always, we'll be using Seeking Alpha to source all of our data and projections. If you're interested in learning more about Seeking Alpha Premium, saving some money on your first year of your subscription, and potentially supporting my channel in the process, make sure you scroll down in the description and click on the special offer link I have down there. All right, now in order to even find stocks that might be eligible for the criteria I just laid out, I needed to use the Seeking Alpha stock screener. And if you're playing at home on your Seeking Alpha, the stock screener is just down here. I actually have several stock screeners already built out in my account. To make it easy for me, I just started with this large and mega cap stock screener that I've built, and I just changed some of the parameters. So if you're following along, it's United States. I'm looking for United States companies. That's where I live. That's the hottest market right now. So that's what I chose as one of the parameters. Market cap 5 billion to over 1 trillion. Then we have revenue forward percentage. Obviously, it needs to be a positive number, a positive percentage in order to actually be growing. So I started at 4%. I didn't want to kind of nickel and dime with stocks that are right at that 1% threshold. So I threw in 4%. Same thing on EPS forward, growth between 4% and above. Now, to illustrate a little bit about what I'm seeing across the board in the market, I'm just going to take all these growing, large cap stocks, if you will, and sorting them by revenue projection forward. Right at the top here is NVIDIA, who's obviously on fire right now. But if you look at NVIDIA, and as awesome as these numbers are, technically it doesn't qualify if you're only looking for stocks that are going to grow more next year than they did in 2024. So NVIDIA, outstanding growth rate, 152% projected last year. They'll grow, if they hit this, they'll grow 93% this year, which is phenomenal, but it is not more than the year before. Same thing on the EPS side. Last year, their EPS growth was 234%. And this year, it's coming in at an outstanding triple digits, but it does not qualify for this particular search. So nothing at all wrong with NVIDIA. I'm far from saying it's a dog, but I'm just telling you that across the market, I see a lot of examples of this, where companies are doing good things. They are growing double digits in some cases on the top and bottom lines, which is phenomenal. But if you're looking for expanding growth rates, top and bottom line, you'll be hard pressed to find them. And lucky for you, with this video, you'll be able to take, 8 to 10 names, jot them down if you want to, and then go research them yourself. There's nothing about this exercise that revolves around valuation, which is obviously something that I look at a lot on this channel. There's nothing in this exercise that says buy, sell, hold. I'm merely pointing out rare instances of growth rates that I typically do not see in other stocks. And finally, in the interest of your time, we're going to click through these very quickly and highlight them and move on to the next one. So I call all of these things out, just to kind of CYA, let you know that this is a stock screener exercise. This is not a invest your life savings exercise. It's merely to give us some credentials to further refine stock names and potentially look more into them to see if we would want to invest in them. All right, jumping right in. First stock on the board is Bank of America. And if we go down to the consensus EPS estimates, this is where they are projected to land in 2024. That year is basically done. We're waiting on earnings calls. But in 25, they could grow the EPS an additional 15%, which would obviously be more than they grew it in 2024, where it came in at about a 4.6% growth. Then if you go down to revenue, 5.87 revenue growth projected in 2025. That is obviously more than they're anticipated to land in 2024. Now, like all the other stocks we're going to look at for today, we don't know exactly where 2024 lands until people come out with all their earnings estimates. But for sake of conversation, Bank of America is interesting because it is projected to grow more top and bottom line than it did in 2024. All right, next up is a stock that, quite honestly, I was not even familiar with. It's a NYSE stock, Penumbra. Hopefully, I am saying that correctly. And I had to scroll down here to learn more about it, so I'll just tell you. The profile says Penumbra, together with subsidies, designs, develops, manufactures, and markets medical devices in the United States and internationally. They offer peripheral products, including Indigo system for power aspiration of thrombus in the body, Lightning Flash, a mechanical thrombectomy system, and Lightning Bolt 7, an arterial thrombectomy system. Lots of thrombectomy systems here. The company is called Penumbra, and if we look at their earnings estimates, 2024, if they hit it, will be $2.78. Next year, if they hit that projection, $3.79, 36% growth versus 33% growth. On the revenue side, it's another close one, $1.19 billion in 2024. That's a growth of 12.5%. Next year, if they hit $1.36 billion, they will grow slightly more at 14.43%. So just by a hair on both accounts, but they are projected to grow more next year. Next up on the board, we have United Airlines Holding. And I can tell you that there is a lot of strong projections for the travel industry next year across the board. If you enjoy looking at earnings estimates growth and revenue growth, definitely check in on the travel sector. December of 2024, you got an expectation of 1034, which would be about 3% growth year over year. You see in 2025, if they get to the 1272, they will grow 23%. Down to revenue, 56.7 billion would be 5.5% growth. And if they hit the 60 billion expected next year, they will just barely beat that growth rate by just under 1% more, but it still counts, particularly with this nice EPS growth. So that is United Airlines Holdings. All right, next up we have another company I was not familiar with, AAON Incorporated. Scroll down here and I'll read you the summary since I don't know much about it. They engage in engineering, manufacturing, marketing, and selling air conditioning and heating equipment in the United States and Canada. They have 3 segments, Oklahoma Coil and BASX. And what's interesting on here, this kind of stuck out to me, data center cooling solutions. So perhaps that's where some of this growth is coming from. Let's take a look at the estimates. Okay, end of this year, 225, be about 2% over the year before. Next year, if they get to 294 or higher, it would be at least a 30% growth rate on the bottom line. If we go down to revenue estimates, 1.22 billion this year, next year projected at 1.53 billion, that would be a 25% revenue growth year over year. So this one is well into the criteria that I've set up. And to me, that data center cooling line was very interesting. I will definitely be going back on AAON, try to learn some more about this company. All right, next up is Take-Two Interactive Software, video game maker. I will say, in my experience, video game makers are tough because some games are popular, some games aren't, and it never really works out exactly the way they all project them to be. But heading into the fiscal period that ends March 2025, so we're going to count that as the right now. If they hit at 251, it would actually come up a little short from the year before. However, next year, and this will definitely need more research, 787 is the projected EPS. 22 analysts, too. 22 analysts, you can see that number here. That would be a 200% growth on the bottom line. And then looking at revenue, if they get to 8.14 billion, they are jumping 44% over the fiscal period that's about to end here in the first few months of 2025. So Take-Two, it's another one with some really strong numbers, might be worth reading more into. All right, how about Dycom Industries? Another new one for me. So I'll scroll down here to company profile. Specialty contracting services to telecommunications infrastructure and utility industries in the United States. Engineering services, planning design of aerial, underground, and buried fiber optic, copper, and coaxial cable systems. Let's take a look at these numbers here. EPS estimate for this past fiscal year, which ends in Jan of 2025. 10% growth rate year over year at 815. If they get to 941 next year, that will be a 15% growth. And if we go to revenue, just by a hair, but it still counts. If they get to the 5.27 billion mark, they will grow 13.63% over 2025. So that is Dycom Industries. All right, next one is EQIX Equinix, and this is a data center REIT. So this is very different, probably than a traditional stock, but it did show up on the stock screener. So let's see what they have going. And the big difference here is you're going to be using, on Seeking Alpha anyway, the funds from operations estimate. So that's a little different than EPS, but you do have the growing growth, if you will. If they hit the 2720 mark, they will be growing at 10.5%, which is more than the year before. Then if we go down to revenue, it's another tight one. 9.5 billion through the end of 2025 would be 8.37% growth. That is obviously just a shade higher than the year before. All right, guys, so that's about 10 names in there of companies that, at least from a projection basis, are going to grow more next year, grow faster next year than they did this past year. Now, out of that whole stock screener that I set up, I probably only got like halfway through it. I actually had to manually check each one of those that were close because the fiscal years didn't line up exactly the same way as the stock screener. So if you liked it, and we'll see how this video performs, definitely give it a like, leave a comment if you thought this was helpful, and I'll go through the rest of the list. Before you go, though, don't forget to check out that special offer for Seeking Alpha Premium down below. I hope everybody's doing well. We'll see you on the next video.